I was 13, and in my head, that was almost grown. My sister Vanessa was 18 and convinced she ruled every room she walked into. That Saturday, she drove us in Mom's dented sedan from Dayton all the way down to the Amtrak station in Cincinnati. She said we needed fresh air and a quick ride by the river. I believed her because at that age, I still believed anyone who sounded sure. The station was big and hollow, every step echoing like we were inside a drum. I wore my favorite blue hoodie, the one with fraying cuffs, and carried a little backpack with the essentials. A paperback earbuds, half a granola bar, and exactly $8 folded inside a library receipt. Vanessa, meanwhile, held her phone like it was a mirror, checking her eyeliner between every other blink. "Stay here," she ordered, pointing at a cold metal bench near the platform doors. "I'll grab drinks. You like hot chocolate, right?" "Okay," I said, settling in. She took a few steps, spun around, and added with a smirk, "Let's see how you do finding your way if I get lost." "You're always bragging about being independent." I frowned. "It's fine, I'm not a baby." She laughed at her own joke and disappeared into the concourse. 10 minutes stretched into 20. No hot chocolate. I pulled out my phone and texted her, "Where are you, no bubbles?" I called. It rang once, then voicemail. I tried again. Straight to voicemail. I told myself her battery died, or maybe the line was just long. My brain has always been talented at giving people unearned benefit of the doubt. A woman in a red coat sat a few seats away. She gave me a polite smile. I smiled back, pretending I had a plan. I unwrapped the granola bar and broke it neatly in half like the neatness alone could fix the knot in my chest. 30 minutes became an hour. Finally a buzz, a text from Vanessa. "You're tough. Find your way home. Think of it as practice." No emoji, no directions. I typed back quickly, "Not funny. Where are you? I'll meet you by the newsstand." Send, stare, nothing. I called again. Straight to voicemail. Her cheerful, pre-recorded greeting made me want to throw my phone against the tile floor. Inside, the ticket clerk's name tag read Ron. "Can I use a phone?" I asked. He slides a landline across the counter. I dialed Vanessa. Voicemail. I dialed Mom. Mailbox full. "You need someone to pick you up," Ron asked gently. "I'm okay," I lied, though. It felt like a guess. Back on the bench, I counted what I had: $7, half a granola bar, a library receipt, and a plastic hair tie. None of it looked like a plan. I watched little slices of other people's lives play out around me, a dad kneeling to tie his kid's shoe, a grandmother wrapping someone in a hug, a couple arguing in whispers. I wasn't invisible, but I was background. The station lights flicked brighter as the sky outside turned navy. I pulled my hoodie strings tight, then looser, then tight again. I texted Vanessa one more time, "I'm still here, please come back." Nothing. I considered calling the police, then pictured the ride home afterwards, the fight waiting there. Mom's slurred scolding if she even answered. Instead, I asked Ron again, "Is there a place I can wait after the platforms close?" He pointed to a row of chairs near the glass wall. "Warmer there. You'll be fine." I moved. The glass was cold through my sleeve. Outside, a freight train crawled by wheels screeching like nails. I set a 30-minute alarm on my phone, convincing myself that when it went off, Vanessa would be back. The alarm went off. Nothing changed. Mom's mailbox was still full. I didn't even try my dad. No numbers, no points. I started stacking facts in my head so I didn't have to feel them. Vanessa said this was practice. She walked away. She hadn't come back. The vending machine hummed down the hall. I fed it $1, got a bottle of water, and pretended the clunk it made was reassuring. Back at the chair, I tried to read, but the same paragraph repeated itself like it was mocking me. The janitor paused, mop in hand. "You okay, kid?" "I'm fine," I said too fast. "Someone picking you up." "Yeah, any minute." I lied again. He nodded and moved on. By 10 o'clock, the cold seeped deeper. My phone battery hit 20. I dimmed the screen, sent one last text, "I'm by the window. Please come back." Silence. The vending machine light glared at me like a dare. My stomach growled louder than the trains outside. I used 3 of my $7 to buy a pack of crackers and ate them one at a time, stretching each bite like it was dinner. Across the concourse, a group laughed loudly. I hated them for a second for having somewhere to belong. I pulled my backpack under my calves, wrapped my arms around it, and watched the same doors Vanessa had disappeared through hours earlier. Because at 13, I still think if you stood in the right spot long enough, people would keep their word. The station announcements kept rolling in, sharp and robotic every 15 minutes, train 52 arriving late from Chicago. The words meant nothing to me, but the sound filled the empty space where Vanessa should have been. By midnight, I stretched out on the bench, backpack under my head, hoodie pulled over my face. The plastic dug into my cheek, the kind of cold you can't ignore. Every time footsteps echoed close, I jolted awake, convinced it was her sneakers squeaking back to me. Every time it was just strangers passing through. By morning, I looked like a ghost in the bathroom mirror, eyes swollen, hair sticking flat in greasy strands. 13 goes on 50. I pulled the hood tight so I didn't have to see myself too long. Outside the station, the city kept moving like nothing had changed. People hurried with briefcases and coffees, brushing past me like I was gum stuck to the sidewalk. I sat on the curb, knees pulled to my chest, and tried to make sense of the word from her last text practice. Practice for what? Practice for nobody coming back for early learning that family doesn't mean safe. The thought was like a brick pressing down in my chest. Hunger got me moving again. I used $2 more at a corner shop for crackers and a bottle of water. The cashier gave me the kind of long stare adults give kids who look misplaced but aren't their problem. He didn't ask, he just took my money. I ate slowly on the curb outside, each gritty bite in my teeth. Cars sped past like they all had somewhere to urgent be. I had nowhere. By sundown, my legs were sore from walking blocks without a plan. Neon signs flickered on, humming loudly against the dark. That's when I spotted the diner open, 24 hours windows fogged with warmth. People laugh over plates of pancakes inside. I didn't dare sit down, but I slipped into the bathroom when no one was looking, locked myself into a stall, and sat on the toilet seat like it was a bed. My backpack stayed cuddled to my chest. Every creak of the door makes me tense. Sleep didn't come, but I kept my eyes closed anyway, pretending stillness could count. By morning, my back ached, like I'd been folded in half. I splashed water on my face at the sink, wiped my armpits with paper towels, and tried to look less like someone falling apart. The smell of frying eggs and bacon drifted in from the kitchen, stabbing my stomach. When I stepped outside again, the air cut sharper than the night before. I sat on the curb, staring at cracks in the pavement, when a shadow fell across me. "You okay, honey?" a woman's voice asked. I froze. She was older, maybe late 60s, with neat gray hair pulled back under a purple scarf. Her eyes were kind in a way that made me want to cry. My first instinct was to lie, say I was fine, say someone was coming, but the words stuck in my throat. What came out instead was cracked, almost a whisper. I lost my family. She didn't flinch. She didn't step back like I was contagious. She just sat beside me on the curb. "What's your name?" I panicked. Abby felt too exposed, too traceable. "Emma," I blurted. She nodded gently like she believed it without question. "I'm Marjorie." She reached into her tote and pulled out a wrapped sandwich. "Here. You need this more than I do." My hands shook as I took it. "Thank you." I devoured the sandwich so fast my throat hurt, but she didn't comment. She just let me eat. "You don't have to tell me details," she said softly. "But I know a place where kids like you can sleep. They'll feed you. It's safe." "Is it the police?" I asked quickly, my chest tightening. "No, church shelter. Volunteers. They don't ask many questions." She dug into her purse and pressed a crumpled 20 into my palm. "There's a bus to Millport. Ask the driver to drop you off at Maple Avenue. The shelter's there." I stared at the bill like it was gold. "Why are you helping me?" Her smile flickered faintly but real. "Because once someone helped me when I was young and scared." "You'll understand one day." Before I could answer, she gave my shoulder a squeeze and stood. She blended into the crowd within seconds like a figure I might have dreamed up. The 20 bought me a bus ticket, a hot chocolate from a vending machine, and the smallest spark of hope. I sat by the bus window, clutching my backpack, whispering to myself so low I could barely hear it. "You're not going back." The bus rumbles away from Cincinnati, and with each mile the station shrank in the rear view. Millport looked tired. Rows of brick shops, a pawn store, a grocery with a fading sign, a diner that probably hadn't changed its menu since the 60s. The bus hissed to a stop at Maple Avenue. Across the street, a red brick church sat with its doors open and a hand-painted sign, "Evening meals at 6, beds available." I backpacked the straps of my cross the street and stepped inside. The air smelled like soup and bleach. At the desk, a woman looked me over quickly. "And name?" "Emma," I said without hesitation. The lie slides easier this time. She scribbled on a clipboard. "All right, Emma. We'll get you a plate and a bunk. Girls' dorm is down the hall." No one asked where my parents were. No one asked why I was alone, just like Marjorie had promised. Dinner was watery chicken soup with saltine crackers, but it filled me. The dorm had rows of metal bunks, thin mattresses, and the smell of damp laundry. Still, when I lay down with my backpack under my head, it feels like luxury. I whispered to myself, "Abby is gone, Emma stays." Over the next week, I learned the shelter's rhythm. Breakfast at 7, chores at 9, school enrollment if you can manage it. I kept to myself, only spoke when asked, and never slipped on the name Emma. One night, Marjorie appeared again carrying folded blankets. She spotted me and smiled like she'd known I'd be there. "How are you holding up, Emma?" she asked. "Fine," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "You remind me of myself at your age," she said, her eyes warm. "Stronger than you think." Don't waste that. Her words stuck with me. People didn't usually call me strong. They called me a burdened, dramatic, or invisible. Strong was new. Strong felt like something I could wear. The shelter helped me register at the local middle school. I picked the last name Miles off a road sign I'd seen on the bus ride. Emma Miles. It looked ordinary enough to pass. By the time I sat in my first class writing it at the top of a worksheet, it almost felt real. At school, no one blinked when I wrote Emma Miles at the top of the attendance sheet. Teachers called me Emma, students called me Emma, and soon enough I answered without hesitation. The name feels like armor. Nights were harder. In the dorm, girls whisper about their parents, caseworkers, or foster homes. I stayed quiet, eyes fixed on the ceiling. My one steady thought, no one is coming back, that's both the relief and the wound. By the end of the school year, social services placed me with a foster family, the Lanes. They weren't saints, they did it for the stipend. But they weren't cruel either. Dinner appears on the table every night. The rules were simple: keep grades up, respect curfew, and don't get cops at the door. For me, that was enough. The Lane house was small and sagged on one side, but it had something I hadn't had in months: stability. I still slept with my backpack next to the bed, though. I didn't trust drawers, I didn't trust permanence. At school, I kept my head down. No sleepovers, no mall trips, just homework and quiet. Teachers noticed I followed instructions, turned things in on time, never caused trouble. That reputation landed me in JROTC, Junior Reserve Officers Training Corps. At first, I thought it was just another excuse for adults to bark orders, but the first time I slipped into the stiff uniform, something clicked. For once, everyone looked the same. No one cares about foster files or missing parents. The uniform flattened all of that. Our instructor, Sergeant Daniels, had the kind of voice that snapped your spine straight without thinking. He barked about respect, discipline, teamwork. Strangely enough, I liked it. Orders were cleared, consequences predictable. Unlike home, nothing depends on someone's mood. Good work, Miles, he said one afternoon after I nailed a drill sequence. The name rings in my chest like a bell. Miles. He didn't know it wasn't real, but maybe that didn't matter. Maybe it was real now. Drill became my outlet. Marching in step felt like control. Carrying the flag during parades made me taller. For the first time, I wasn't invisible. The structure bled into the rest of my life. I made my bed with hospital corners. I folded laundry into sharp squares. I timed myself on chores, shaving off seconds. The other foster kids rolled their eyes, but I didn't care. Order made sense. Rules make sense. During one community service project, we picked up trash at a park. I worked twice as fast as the others. Daniels pulled me aside. "Why are you moving like someone's chasing you?" he asked. I broke. I don't like leaving a mess behind. He studied me for a moment like he heard more than I said. That year, I stopped flinching when people called me Emma. I laugh sometimes at dumb jokes in the squad. I wasn't whole, but I wasn't hollow either. The Lane foster placement didn't last forever. By 16, I'd been moved twice more. Different walls, different rules, but the uniform stayed constant. JROTC became my anchor, the one thing no foster shuffle could strip away. Daniels saw something in me. Ever thought about the service, he asked one afternoon. The service, I echoed. Army, Marines, Navy. Kids like you, discipline already built in, you do well. I hesitated. No one had ever told me I had anything worth keeping. I'm only 14. Yeah, well, 14 turns to 18 faster than you think. Keep your grades up. You'll have options. Options. That word feels like oxygen. For most of my life, choices belong to other people. Vanessa chose to leave me. Mom chose not to answer. Foster parents chose whether I stayed. But maybe if I kept this path, I could choose for myself. At 15, Daniels handed me a Marine Corps brochure. Hardest branch, he said. Not for everyone, but it makes some kids. That night, I read it under my blanket with a flashlight. Images of recruits crawling through mud, climbing ropes, standing in formation. Impossible and perfect all at once. I wanted that. I wanted to be unrecognizable from the girl who once sat starving in a train station. So I doubled down. Push-ups every morning, runs after school, sit-ups until my stomach cramped. I lived like boot camp had already started. Don't burn out, Daniels warned. Boot camp will break you down anyway. I can handle it, I said. He crouched so we were eye level. Listen, Miles, if you go in already thinking you've got nothing left to lose, you'll make it. Just don't forget to live in the meantime. I nodded, though I didn't understand what he meant yet. Competitions became my high. Drill team color guard, even tiny parades no one watched. The first time I carried the flag in front of a crowd, applause hit me like sunlight. For once, strangers didn't look past me. At school, a cadet named Tyler tried to ask once, "You got siblings, Miles?" No, I answered flatly, just me. He looked like he wanted to press, but my stare shut him down. After that, no one asked. Walls stayed up. That suits me fine. By 16, Daniels nominated me for a summer leadership camp at a base nearby. The week was hell: early runs, push-ups, and dirt, endless drills. But when I marched across the field at the closing ceremony, seeing Daniels nod from the stands, it felt like a medal. That summer cemented it. I wasn't just surviving anymore, I was preparing. Preparing for a life where no one could ditch me again. Preparing to build a family out of loyalty, not blood. Preparing to matter in ways Vanessa never thought I would. On my 17th birthday, I walked into the recruiter's office. Staff Sergeant Moore studied me with arms crossed. "Why the Marines?" he asked. "Because it's the hardest," I said without blinking. He smirked. "That's an answer I don't hear much." He slid a stack of papers across the desk. "Come back when you're 18, we'll make it official. Walking home, I caught my reflection in a store window. JROTC uniform under my hoodie, backpack slung high. For the first time, I saw someone who looked like she could last. Someone who wouldn't vanish. Someone builds her own life brick by brick. On my 18th birthday, I signed the enlistment papers with a pen that felt heavier than it should have. Staff Sergeant Moore shook my hand firm and unflinching. Welcome to the course miles, Paris Island, 6 weeks. 6 weeks to leave behind the foster homes, the shelters the girl abandoned on a train bench. 6 weeks to step into something that would either break me or make me. The Lanes didn't say much. Mr. Lane argued about steady paychecks and structure. Mrs. Lane half smiled. No hugs, no questions. But at least no resistance. That was enough. The send-off wasn't cinematic. No tearful parents waving flags, just me on a bus heading south, duffel bag on my lap, heart hammering against my ribs. Every mile blurts out the past a little more. Paris Island didn't welcome anyone. It takes you down on arrival. The second my boots hit the pavement, drill instructors lit us up like we were enemy combatants. Move faster down. Sleep shrank into scraps. Food into fuel swallowed in 7 minutes or less. Push-ups in gravel until my arms trembled. Marches until my legs scream. Stripping and reassembling rifles until my fingers bled. The first week was hell, but not unfamiliar. I'd already lived nights on cold benches, mornings in shelters, days wondering where food would come from. Compared to that, being screaming it felt almost easy. At least here the rules make sense. At least here pain came with purpose. I clenched my jaw until it hurt and told myself, you've survived worse. Some recruits cracked quickly. A girl next to me sobbed until she was discharged. Another faked an ankle injury. I didn't cry, I didn't quit. Every time I wanted to collapse, I pictured Vanessa's text, think of it as practice. That memory burned hotter than any drill instructor's scream. By the 3rd month, I had calluses on my palms, muscles across my shoulders, and a spine that felt like steel. I could strip a rifle in under 2 minutes. I could march in perfect unity without thinking. The hardest moment came in the gas chamber exercise. We stood shoulder to shoulder in masks, then, one by one, ordered to rip them off. The burn clawed down my throat, seared my lungs, blinded my eyes with tears. My body screamed to tremble. I stayed, gagging, coughing, fighting through it. When the door finally opened, the air outside felt like life itself. Another recruit puked in the grass. I stayed on my knees, gulping air, chest heaving. I whispered to myself, still here, still standing. Graduation day came with the Eagle Globe and anchor pinned to my chest. Pride surged so strong it started me. No family waiting in the stands, no one to clap. But I didn't feel empty. The other Marines clapped my back. Their grins, sweaty and exhausted, felt like the only family I needed. That night, lying in the barracks bunk, I touched the stitching on my uniform sleeve. This wasn't luck, this wasn't charity, this was earned. One blister, one bruise, one drill at a time. And for the first time, I didn't feel like the girl abandoned at a train station. I feel like a Marine. Afghanistan wasn't just hot. The heat pressed into your bones turned the air itself to sand. Our squad's first patrol through Helmand Province felt like marching across a furnace with 80 pounds strapped to my back. Sweat soaked my vest, my mouth dried like paper. But hesitation wasn't an option. Out there, one wrong step could turn the dirt under your boot into shrapnel. We crossed a dried riverbed when the first firefight hit. Gunfire cracked from a ridge. Dust exploded. My chest pounded so loud I thought it would break through my ribs. I dropped behind a rock rifle snug to my shoulder. Training snap into place, suppress move cover. Sergeant Alvarez barked orders through the chaos. We returned fire, the air thick with smoke and grit. I squeezed the trigger, the rifle rattling against me. The world shrank to my sightline and the Marine to my left. Keep them alive, that was the only thought. We pushed them back that day, but not without cost. Private Dixon, 19 from Ohio, took a round to the chest. His vest caught some of it. Not enough. I helped lift him to the medevac, my gloves slick with blood. He was gone before the helicopter even lifted. That night, under a desert sky littered with more stars than I'd ever seen, the weight hit me. That morning, it felt almost normal. We were crowded around the burn-scarred table outside the chow tent, helmets balanced on our knees, dust clinging to our sleeves like a second uniform. Dixon had a spoon halfway to his mouth and said, if my mom could see this oatmeal, she'd call it a crime against Italian cooking. We laughed too loud, too grateful for the release. He promised he'd beg her to mail lasagna when we rotated back to base. Someone said they'd trade a month of MREs for one pan. By sundown, we were loading Dixon into a black bag that wouldn't take his jokes. I'd promised myself I wouldn't let the lines blur. Names, not stories. Faces, not friends. Keep it contained. Keep the walls up. But war has no patience for your rules. It rams through them with the subtlety of a Humvee over glass, and when the echo settles, you're just a person again, unarmored, standing in a field where the wind sounds like your own breath. Days smeared together, pre-dawn briefings under a flickering bulb, patrols that stretched until your calves nodded. Long stretches of silence that snapped to chaos with the sound of a single voice yelling, "Contact!" The calendar didn't move so much as a road. War wasn't just firefights, mostly it was boredom heavy enough to bend your spine. It was the fifth packet of instant coffee because you didn't trust sleep. It was the sour taste of an MRE you'd pretend was spicy pasta while you nodded in the shade of a wall that had once been someone's garden. It was easing yourself into dust and using your rifle as a pillow because comfort was for other lives. It was laughing at jokes that weren't funny because the alternative was remembering why you needed to laugh. One afternoon, we rolled up to a school with supplies. Paper pencils, a box of chalk, a first aid kit with the Red Cross fading in the sun. Kids swarmed us like sparrows, tugging at sleeves, asking for candy in a tumble of words and gestures. One girl with a purple hair tie kept showing me a math workbook with perfect neat numbers. I pretended I could help with long division and drew a smiley face in the corner. I handed out 2 lollipops I'd been saving for myself. Their giggles cracked something hard in me for exactly 3 seconds. Then I noticed the man standing at the edge of the road. Hands behind his back, a stillness that didn't belong to any normal day. He watched us without blinking, the kind of cold that isn't temperature. The reminder landed sharp in this place: kindness and danger shared fences. We packed up faster than we wanted to and left the chalk dust to settle on its own. A month later, danger stopped sharing and took everything it could. We were clearing a compound built like a stack of mismatched boxes. Windows, bricked up laundry lines drooping with shirts nobody had worn in months. Jameson was just ahead of me, 2 fingers lifted in a signal hold. He glanced back, raised his brows, and that way he did, joking even when his mouth was set hard, and then the floor learned how to scream. The blast didn't sound like I expected. It was a slice of tearing of the sky from inside the earth. Heat shoved me backward. A wall hit my shoulder with the enthusiasm of a truck, and the world went white, then brown, then a sharp ringing that swallowed my name and spit it back wrong. Dust filled my mouth. I couldn't see my hands. I couldn't find up. Jameson, I meant to shout, but my voice came out in pieces. Where he had been there was a hole, and around the hole were things that used to be a floor, and the air was so full of grit my eyes cried mud. Someone was tangled in rebar boot-kicking weakly. Training is louder than fear when it needs to be. I crawled, grabbed fabric, heaved with a back that would complain, next week, next month. The Marine I hauled out rivers was slick with blood at the hairline and cursing in a steady, almost musical stream. "You're okay," I told him, which wasn't true and had to be. We pulled back through a doorway that had lost its door. Alvarez was there with his jaw clenched, sweeping the space we'd just abandoned, shouting into the radio. Pieces of concrete popped like corn, and I tasted something metallic and realized I'd bitten my tongue. That night at the outpost, I lay on a cot that had learned my shape, and every blink replayed the same 4 frames, Jameson's hand signaling hold. His nod. The sudden empty. Then nothing. Somewhere outside, a generator coughed. Inside my head, the ringing never stopped. I whispered to the ceiling, to the night, to whoever was on duty above all this, if I can survive this, I can survive anything. It wasn't a prayer, it was a dare. On another patrol, we belly-crawled under a coil of barbed wire that someone had bothered to mend. Bullets snapped overhead, the sound like angry insects. My lungs were small rooms with no windows. My elbows were valves leaking skin. "Keep moving!" Miles Alvarez's voice cut through the noise in clean lines. I moved. Not because I wasn't afraid, because fear is fuel with the right spark. And still the months kept throwing their weight at us, heat that cooked you. From the boots up, jokes that got reused until they felt like talismans, letters that arrived damp with the sweat of the person who carried them. Every day had odds. Every night wrote the same reminder on the inside of your skull: tomorrow is not a promise, it's a raffle ticket. When our tour finally ended, we lined up to board the plane home under a light that felt too white. We left with fewer than we'd brought. Empty seats shouted louder than any bugle ever could. I sat with my helmet in my lap, eyes on the floor, names looping like dog tags around my thoughts. Dixon, Jameson, the list you learn by heart even if you never want to recite it. Under the weight of it all was a strange clarity, like rain washing mud off a windshield. I wasn't the girl left behind anymore. I wasn't just surviving. I was someone who had walked through a fire and still knew how to walk. I joined the National Guard because 1 foot in uniform felt like a promise to the person who had needed that dare. Drills on weekends kept me steady, boots checklists. A cadence that made sense. With the GI Bill, I enrolled in college, a campus that smelled like cut grass and old books. In classrooms, people argued about footnotes while I mapped exits without meaning to. Some days I could sit anywhere, other days a chair with my back to the door made my palms sweat. After classes, I worked part-time at a bookstore stacking novels in tidy towers. The quiet was a gift you were almost scared to unwrap. A few months into that new routine, an envelope waited in my mailbox, wedged between a catalog and a bill. The handwriting froze me at the curb, neat slanted leaning toward me like a person sure they'd be welcome. Vanessa. 10 years gone. I didn't open it. I set it on the counter and cleaned a sink that didn't need it. I made coffee and tasted nothing. Finally, I slit the envelope with a butter knife. It smelled faintly of lavender. She'd always loved that scent, using it like a disguise, as if perfume could outvote truth. The letter was full of apologies shaped like smoke. She used the word mistake. She said she'd looked for me. She said she missed me, that every birthday she lit a candle and thought of me, that she wanted to reconnect. Reconnect. The word curdled. We weren't old friends who drifted. She had left me on a bench with no plan and a lie she took home to make it tidy. I shoved the letter into a drawer. It didn't stay there. The words leaned against my shoulder as I shelved books, rode the bus, folded laundry. A week later, my phone lit up with 37 missed calls, all from her. I played one voicemail. Her voice was older, the edges sanded down by years I didn't witness. Emma, I'm sorry. I should have never left you that day. I don't expect forgiveness. I need you to know the truth. Truth, another word that had learned how to echo. I ignored her for 3 more days and slept poorly for 3 more nights. On Sunday morning, with sunlight slipping in like a new idea, I called back. Emma, she breathed. You've got 5 minutes, I said. Make them count. It wasn't supposed to be the end, she blurted. I thought it was a joke. I wanted to scare you a little, prove I didn't have to babysit you every second, and then I panicked and I lied. I told Mom you ran off. I thought you'd be home by dinner. And when you weren't, everything spiraled. I tried to find you, I swear. My jaw ached from holding still. 10 years boiled down to a prank and a panic. You don't get to frame it as panic, I said. I was the one on that bench with no food, no number, no family. You went home. She sobbed, the sound messy and real. Please, just meet me once. If you still hate me, I'll disappear forever. The Marine and me counted risk-benefit exit routes. The abandoned sister said softly, face her. Once I agreed. We chose a small cafe on Maple Avenue, neutral ground, too public for shouting, too intimate for pretending. I arrived early and ordered black coffee I let go cold. The door chimed, and she walked in, shorter hair gray threading through brown, the old careless smirk retired. She looked like someone who'd learned that consequences arrive whether you invite them or not. Emma, she said, voice barely above the hum of the espresso machine. I didn't stand, sit. She sat, her hands worried a napkin until it split. You look strong, she offered. I am, I said. Truth isn't always complicated. She started into a speech and I cut it off with a palm lifted. No scripts, just honesty. Her lips trembled. I was selfish. I wanted control. I thought leaving you for a few minutes would make you listen to me. Then I kept walking. Then I lied, and when you didn't come home, I didn't know how to say what I'd done. I was a coward. Tears dotted the tablecloth between us. I hate myself for it. I don't deserve forgiveness, but I couldn't keep walking around with this without telling you, to your face, I am sorry. I leaned forward. My voice shook, but not from weakness. From the weight of the thing I was finally setting down. Do you know what that day did to me? Foster homes, shelters, the Marines. I buried friends whose names are tattooed inside my skull. They became more family than you ever were allowed to be, and you think sorry is enough? If hating me keeps you whole, she whispered, I'll take it. You don't get it, I said. I don't hate you anymore. Hate takes energy. You don't get that from me. What I feel is nothing. You don't matter enough to hate. Her face folded. Please, don't shut me out forever. I stood, left enough cash to cover 2 coffees. She reached for my sleeve. I pulled my arm free gently, like removing a bandage that no longer protected anything. You had 1,000 chances, I said. You chose silence. This was your one. Goodbye. The bell above the door announced my exit like a judge's gavel. Outside, the air felt sharper, honest. With each step away from the cafe, something that had lived between my ribs for 10 years loosened and slid off. Back home, I blocked her number. I put the letter back in the drawer and shut it like closing a chapter. This time, the silence that followed wasn't a vacuum. It was space I got to live in. At drill that weekend, Alvarez clapped a hand on my shoulder with his usual sideways grin. Whatever's been chewing on you, Miles, looks like you chewed back. Something like that, I said, and found a smile that didn't feel borrowed. For years, I thought closure meant answers. That if Vanessa ever showed up with an explanation, I'd feel whole. But closure had been waiting somewhere else entirely in the moment I decided her betrayal wasn't a mirror I had to live inside. My revenge wasn't rage. It wasn't the fantasy speech where she wept and I forgave or condemned with a cinematic score swelling behind us. My revenge was peace. It was choosing a life built on loyalty instead of blood. It was a bookstore where I knew every aisle, a guard unit where my name meant capability friends who answered at 2 a.m. without asking me to shrink. It was drinking a hot coffee all the way to the bottom. It was sitting with my back to the door because I wanted to, not because I had to. I wasn't the girl abandoned on a bench. I was Corporal Emma Miles, Marine, survivor. And for the first time since a sibling left me with nothing but a lie and a lavender-scented future, I was free.